Welcome and welcome, welcome. We're going to be talking about our new laws, big risks, and bigger opportunities when it comes to being a business owner. So there's a lot there. I could tell you the start of the conversation generally is I have a business, and that's it. Sometimes with clients, it's not even that. When we're asking clients that, hey, you know what? We need you to fill out this paperwork, list your assets. And when we review it, the business is not even on the asset sheet. Why? Because uh, we don't think about our businesses necessarily as an asset for a variety of reasons. Maybe we just started it, or it's not as profitable as we want it to be, or it's not really profitable at all, or it's not something we think assets are just dollars in a bank account somewhere. The business is an entity, but not an asset. Whatever it is, it seems to me that just businesses in general kind of become the redheaded stepchild of people's lives and portfolios when we talk about planning. Now, it's not that way in reality as far as the day to day, because that's your baby. If you're a business owner, that is one of the most important things in your life at that moment is your business. Whether you're growing it or running it, you inherited it, it is a very important thing, but we don't have the same mindset when we're talking about what happens to that business in life transitions. And that's what this conversation is about today. So, without further ado, we have new laws, big risks, bigger opportunities. Let's get started, shall we? A little bit about me. So, for those of you that don't know me, this slide is for you. For those of you that know me, you know all this and more. So that's my wonderful family right here, and that is, unlike other previous presentations, that is a current picture. So we had a wonderful opportunity to spend some time this summer in Tuscany. That is Tuscany behind us. That is not a green screen. We were really there, and we were able to be business owners in Tuscany because we employed some of the strategies that we're going to talk about today. So that is my lovely wife Carolyn and our three kids, and that encapsulates what's important to me, first and foremost, and then Snyder Law in the business, because I am more than just the business, and that's what you want to be in your life and what you strive to be. So I also have gone to school, become a lawyer, and been practicing for 20 years come December. And I love this stuff, very passionate. So that's just a quick summary about who I am. So we're going to take me onto the journey with you and being your guide, and this is what you're going to learn. Here are kind of three blocks of things that I want us to accomplish today. So if we're watching this later or we're in this meeting today, these are the three things that I want you to walk away with by the end. This will be a successful webinar if we can accomplish these three things. New laws, new opportunities. I want you to understand how the One Big Beautiful Bill Act can be a benefit for you as a business owner. There are key areas that every owner has to review religiously. When I mean religiously, periodically, annually, at a minimum, because compliance is key, or else it really doesn't matter. It's a false security blanket. Some of you know the emperor without clothes. We're going to talk about him again. You don't want to be that. All right. So the last is integration with estate planning. This last piece, huge, because this is the block that usually falls away, and they kind of fall away in this order, right? We as business owners, we try to stay up on the laws, or someone informs us about new laws. Great. Not a lot of us are compliant, or we think we're compliant, we're not. And then many of us don't align our businesses with our estate plan. Why? Because our business is going to last forever, ever, and we're going to run it forever. We don't like to think about us not being able to be around to run our business, either from us dying perspective or there was an accident, injury, or illness, and we're not able to come to work. We're disabled or we're incapacitated cognitively, temporarily, or permanently. So we need to address a lot of stuff today. We're going to hit it at a high level, because we can take each of these little blocks and make them a whole webinar and more in and of itself. In fact, on that point, as I switch over here, um, if any of you watching this are interested in having a larger conversation, a kind of a bigger event, I'm not talking about picking up the phone and calling and scheduling an appointment with me. I'm not going to stop you from doing that. That'd be wonderful if you want to go one-on-one, but If you're interested in kind of a larger day to kind of deep dive into some more of these topics beyond just a webinar, in-person event, half-day event, nice venue, if you're interested in doing kind of a business owners boot camp, let us know. Reach out. Let Lara know because we are interested in getting that feedback because we'd like to put something together for you that's a bit more comprehensive in a condensed fashion. 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, half day, whatever, whatever it looks like. That business owner boot camp could be something that you might be interested in doing. But we want to know before we kind of start putting all those pieces together. So give us that feedback. Let us know. All right. So why business owners need a checkup? This is the one of the pieces of that annual review that I talked about. I want you, and I'm going to encourage you, business owner, to think about your business as a part of your health. Because when it comes to health, most of us get it, right? Not that we necessarily do it, but we get it. We get it that we should go get our annual physical. We get it that we should go get our eye exam, our teeth exam, annual basis. There are certain things we should be doing annually from a health perspective, depending on our age or in a certain time frame. A little plug, colonoscopies, super important, right? So if you're 45, get your colonoscopy, insurance will cover it. You can go earlier if you want. Insurance hasn't covered that yet, but they will because it used to be 50. Now it's 45. Go get that done. Now that's if you're lucky, once every 10 years. So, but it's important to get in front of those things. The only way we get in front of those health events is to get the information by doing the checkup. So a lot of us don't do checkups. Why? We don't want bad news, right? We don't want to get that bad, oh, you have a cavity, sir, or you know what, we're going to have to get you glasses, or we're going to have to increase the prescription on your glasses, oh, you have an astigmatism, or you have cancer, right? No one wants to hear the bad stuff, but the reality is, if you're like John Stockdale, look him up if you don't know him, but he's one of my heroes, James B. Stockdale. In fact, Lieutenant Admiral James B. Stockdale. For those of you who are old enough, you remember him being the kind of quirky vice presidential candidate with Ross Perot in the 1992 elections. So, but if you study him beyond this little quirky character that he was unfortunately portrayed as, this guy was a fighter pilot, was he was a prisoner of war, POW in Vietnam, along with John McCain. Literally, they were in the Hanoi Hilton together, and not the Hilton like the good one. They were in a prisoner camp together. So you hear a lot about John McCain, of course, but James B. Stockdale was there as well. And then he was a professor of philosophy within the U.S. Naval Academy. So and he was a Stoic philosopher while he was a fighter pilot. Then he just carried that on, and the Navy loved him because it's important to teach history and philosophy. So one of his things that he looks at, and one of his quotes is that, and I'm going to just paraphrase it, is that you have to confront the bad news. Those people, those prisoners of war that were in denial, that said that they were going to be released by Christmas or released then by Easter, those were the prisoners of war that didn't make it, the soldiers that died in camp. The ones that were able to confront the brutal realities of their world and their situation and still keep the faith that they were going to succeed, those were the ones that lived. So as a business owner, you got to know the bad news. We got to be able to confront the fact that our business isn't profitable. We got to confront the fact that we got to pay a bunch of taxes this year. We got to confront the fact that we're getting sued or that we have some sort of liability or we're not putting together best business practices. And that is opening up to risk from getting sued by an employee, by a vendor, or someone getting hurt on our property, or we are causing our clients to be hurt because our data got compromised. So those are all things that we got to take a look at, but we don't know if we don't get a checkup. So we got to get a checkup every year to make sure that we are on track. And if we're doing it early and often, the more likely scenario is that we're getting good news. Like, I just went to the eye doctor. Doctor said, guess what? Your eyes are staying the same. I went to the dentist. And my dentist, I love my dentist. Okay, I love my dentist. And the dentist says, comes in, Kevin, It looks great. So I'm getting that news. I went in there kind of trepidatious, like, ooh, shoot, I wasn't flossing all the time that I'm supposed to. I'm going to get a bad review. But it turns out I didn't. And I got my necessary cleaning. And if I had avoided it, then I wouldn't have got that teeth cleaning to get the plaque off that I can't get no matter how much I brush or floss. And that turns into something worse. So get your checkups, because I will tell you, before I change the slide, I will tell you that the most common business that I see coming through my office when we get through to the point of, hey, by the way, your business, your S Corp, your LLC, your corporation, what that mom and pop or that little business venture that you're doing, or whether this big successful business, whatever it is, that is an asset. And by the way, can you show me some paperwork about your business? I need the business docs. The number one thing, answer, or comment that I get back is, oh, you mean the articles? Yeah, I filed those. Okay, great. What about the other documents? What do you mean, what other documents? I just filed the articles. That's all you need, right? I can't tell you how many times, and this is no fault of the business owner because you just don't know. You have to incorporate, and there's paperwork that you file to incorporate. Then you get a name, and then you file taxes on that business. You report to the franchise tax board in California, whatever tax board in whatever state you might be incorporated in. Then that's it. That's all many business owners do, but that's not enough. That's not enough. And so they don't know because they're not getting an annual checkup. And now we're talking years of this. And number one, they're lucky that they haven't had to confront that reality in a bad way, such as a lawsuit. Number two, is that they're a increased risk the longer they go without that planning together. So they have a bad business from a legal perspective, and they don't know it. They don't know. It's like a cancer that goes undetected. You don't know what's going on bad inside of you because you're not getting a checkup. But meanwhile, your body's dying and you have no understanding of that until it reaches a fulcrum point, and then it's manifesting, and then it's too late for the cure. So we don't want your business to get to that end stage. So that's a good segue into the core responsibilities of a business owner. So that's what the annual review is going to do. This Business WellCheck. I'm going to introduce that phrase, Business WellCheck. So you get a Business WellCheck. It's going to be looking at you. Are you fulfilling the core responsibilities of being a business owner? If you're not, guess what? You have a sham business. You might have a name. It might say professional corporation. It might say incorporation, Inc., PC, APC, whatever little acronym you decided when you started your business. It says that could be a sham business in the eyes of the law. Now, you're doing real business. You're not doing anything bad. You're not doing anything criminal. I don't mean a scam business that you're scamming people or a sham business that you're scamming people. But in the eyes of the law, it's not a real business. And now you're walking around in life like the emperor new clothes. And if those of you remember that story, is the emperor had all their yes people saying, yes, sir, you look good, look wonderful. But he wasn't wearing any clothes because the people that came in to do his tailoring totally fleeced him out of that, said he was wearing these wonderful robes that were invisible to him, but not to the others. And he was just walking around. That's like having a business on paper. You just submitted a paper to the Secretary of State, and you're walking around thinking you're a viable business. You're naked in the legal sense. And that's because you're not staying compliant with state and federal requirements. State and federal requirements, they command that you do something every year or every 2 years, depending on what state you're in. California, if you are a corporation, you've got to file a statement of information every year. If you're LLC, it's every 2 years. That has to be done, or you fall into inactive status. Several times when clients say, "Oh yeah, I have this LLC, 123 Main Street LLC," and I look it up, and there's big red letters on the website. It says inactive. And inactive, why? Because they never filed their statement of information that they were supposed to file years ago, and it says it was due in 2022, and they didn't file it. Why? They didn't know. Had they gone through a business well check, that would have been something that we could tell you very quickly. You want to, as a business owner, ensure that you are protecting your structure of your business. Have I chosen the right business entity? I had a client come in here, a lawyer, didn't practice in business law, of course, because that was the mistake. She tried to practice business law for herself. And so she came in, she was a lawyer in another practice area, and we got talking. She said, yeah, I said, are you a sole proprietor or what? And she said, well, no, I'm an LLC. And I set up my LLC and I'm operating as an LLC. She had the wrong business entity. As a lawyer, practicing licensed person in California, you need a professional corporation. Now, it's not all licensed individuals. There's a list on the Business and Professions Code. Lawyer is one of them. So a lawyer cannot have an LLC. So she had the wrong business structure. She wasn't protecting herself simply because she had an LLC. It would be invalid. Why is that a problem? Well, what if she got sued and it wasn't due for malpractice? She got sued, an employee of hers sued her. Well, and she can sue her personally for her personal assets, and she can't hide behind the LLC because it's invalid. Now, had she had a professional corporation, which you darn right she did after she talked to me, so she has a professional corporation now. Now, if that same situation, when I say hide behind, that just means we're protecting her personal assets. So employee has a grievance, sues, can't sue her personally, can only sue the business, right? Assuming that she wasn't the one that was doing a harassment or whatever the origin of the lawsuit was. Let's say we have two employees and it's an issue between the two of them. One saying I was harassed at work or my manager, toxic work environment. They can't sue the owner. They can only sue the professional corporation. Now, the owner's home, savings, all that's protected. And that's why you set up a business. Most people set it up in their minds either because I have to, they think that they have to, they want to sound more professional. That's all true. That's all okay. And the other is, oh, there's some tax advantage. That might be true, might not be, but you think that there is, and maybe there is. So, tax advantage. The last thing on the list, and arguably kind of the most important, is liability protection, protection from lawsuits. Why? Because a business is a structure that is a firewall between you and the legal problem that's causing the lawsuit. That is the biggest. Why is that the biggest? Well, obviously, if you get sued and get taken for everything, you have nothing. You don't have a business, you don't have a house, you don't have savings, you have nothing. So, what does it matter whether you look professional on the board? Snyder Law PC. I don't care. I don't got nothing. I don't care. I can't run my business. I just got cleaned out. So, we need to flip that on its head and say the number one priority is the risk management. Okay, how do we do risk management? How do we protect ourselves from lawsuits? We get the right entity, the right structure. Then we protect it because we're doing all the things to stay compliant. We're doing corporate governance. What's corporate governance? Well, that's all the rules that are there in the law that says these are the things you have to do every year in order to stay active as a business entity to keep that wall up. So, all right, well, we got to file a statement of information. Maybe we have to do annual minutes. We have to have a bank account that's separate from our personal bank account. We have to ensure that all of our vendor agreements all are with the corporation or LLC and not us personally. We have to make sure if, like, for example, if you're a landlord, you have a rental property, you put that in LLC. All of your lease agreements cannot be with your personal name on it. Even if that was the way it was before, you got to change all that. So now it's the LLC. You're operating the business like a business. There's best practices, there's requirements. You got to make sure you're doing that. Even if you have the right entity, it can go south if you're not doing the right things. Why is that? Well, that's because there are these pesky little people out there that have law degrees and call themselves lawyers, and they are sue happy. And they have clients that are litigious, and they're more than happy to sue the bejesus out of you. So we want to be able to protect that. We want this firewall to be firm. We don't want any cracks. We don't want any cracks in the dike, right? You know that story about the little Dutch boy, right? The finger in the dike, right? So we don't want any holes springing out and all of a sudden our wall of protection crumbles next to the onslaught and flood of the lawsuit. We want a corporation, an LLC, that has a foot thick iron wall. We don't want a wall of Swiss cheese made out of wood. So what happens is that the lawyers are going to look for these little opportunities. Is there a hole? Is there some way we can permeate and gut through? It's called piercing the corporate veil. Just think about a spear going right through, piercing the corporate veil, right? That's what it is. So we want to make sure we have foot of iron that no spear is going to be able to pierce. No tank shell is going to be able to blow a hole into it, and you are ironclad, firm, and protected. How do we do that? Right entity, making sure that we're being compliant, we have good corporate governance, and we are using best business practices for the industry that we're in, and just business in general, but industry that we're in. How do we know we're doing that? I can't hear you because it's a webinar, but I'm hearing you say we do a business well check every year, right? Okay, great. So now other responsibilities is we want to make sure we're, of course, staying smart and savvy with taxes, because like I said, that's one of the reasons some people start businesses is, hey, there's some tax advantage. Talk to your tax filer, your CPA accountant. Hopefully you have one that's doing tax strategy with you, because there's so many things that can be done. There's a lot of fun, and I say fun, I'm a little nerding out about it, but being a business owner is kind of fun. There's things we can do, right? We can write off things. As a business owner, number one thing, I get to write off that. It kind of sounds fun. It magically disappears. Of course, we know that that's not true. You're still spending the money, but if you get to expense it through the business, now you're lowering your tax liability on the profit. So we get to use things like that when we say write off. So we're not paying it post-tax dollars from our personal bank accounts. We're using it as a business expense. So that's saving us on what we're personally spending after we are paying income taxes. So there's some cool things like that. There's discounting. There's depreciation, which if you're a business owner, you might hear quite frequently. And maybe you know or don't know what that word is, what that means. But depreciation is really big when it comes to tax strategies with businesses. So, and there's many, many more, right? So, of course, the biggest decision when you say I want a corporation, whether that's a professional corporation, regular corporation, am I going to be a C corporation or an S corp? The nuance, of course, there's no real entity called an S corp. Little, if you take a little nugget away, you're at a party this weekend, and you're like, okay, a fun fact, what I learned, your S corp, not real thing. You really have a corporation that decides to file taxes with a subchapter S, tax election. It's a type of tax filing. That's what an S corp is. But we say S corp because it just kind of normal talk. But as a corporation or an LLC, you can decide to be an S corp, meaning that you can decide as an LLC to be taxed, have that tax filing under subchapter S. So anyway, we want to be tax smart, and we want to make sure that we have a plan of succession. So the succession doesn't mean I'm going to have a big liquidity event because I'm going to sell my business and retire and just sit on the beach in Hawaii and live out the rest of my days sipping Mai Tais. That's not what we're talking about solely. That could be an outcome, and that sounds awesome. So retiring, selling your business, big sum of money, doing what you really want to do every day, it's kind of the American dream, right? We're going to work our butts off, then we're going to get our payday, and then we're going to do what we really want to do every day. So that's one. But what if the succession is, well, I don't want to sell my business to just anybody. I want to keep it in the family. This is a family-run business. I inherited from my father, and I want my children to run the business. They're interested in doing it. So how are we going to do that? Because you know what? I was an only child, or I was the only child in my family that wanted to run the business. So it was really easy. There's just one, but hey, I have a few kids, and a few of them are interested. Not all of them, few of them are, but more than one. So I don't know that reality because I didn't live through that. So I don't know how it works. So how can I succeed the business to more than one of them? And not all of them are in the business. So which one kind of gets left out in the dark? Doesn't get the advantage? Is that fair? How does that all work? How do we prevent fighting within the family? That sort of stuff. Can they afford to buy me out? Because I'm just not going to hand it over. Yeah, that would be nice to do, but I do need to get paid because I have bills. I'm getting older. I want to go do the Hawaii trip. I don't want to live there the rest of my life, but I want to go to that Hawaii island trip. So a lot of my equity in my portfolio is within that business. So, and I want to go my kids, I don't want to go to an outside seller to get that equity out and sell it to them. So how do I manage to do that in a financially responsible way for my life, for their life, that is tax efficient and also doesn't create a legacy of family infighting over the family business after I die? Well, then we got to plan for succession, and we have to plan for the succession of emergency. Okay, it's not just retirement, it's just not family legacy. It is going to be the emergency. You can't show up to work that morning because you got in a car accident that was pretty serious on the way to work, and you're in the hospital in the ICU, sedated, or you're in surgery. Nobody is showing up. Kevin is not showing up to work. What the heck happens? Well, who is running the ship? Who on the day to day? What if it's long term? What if Kevin can't work anymore because he now is a paraplegic with a brain injury? He hadn't died, but now he can't be a lawyer. How does that work? And you think about your business. How does that work for your business? It's just not going to magically figure itself out. And the problem, of course, in thinking about your business is if how is your business going to run on a day-to-day basis? Maybe it can last for a few days, a week, a month, but beyond that, how is it going to truly operate and be profitable to benefit your employees and your family? Or is your business tied to your name so much that if you can't operate in your business is worth pennies? They won't be able to sell it. Do you have value in your business? Do you even know? Have you ever done a business valuation? Right? We have to know these things to prepare for the emergency, and because there's legal, who has the legal ability to go to the bank to, if the bank says, hey, you're not on the account, how does that work? Or we don't know the passwords and logins for some of these platforms that our owner would be able to access. We can't sign on tax returns because he is unable or she is unable to sign. That's like practical stuff. And then integrating with our estate plan. Like I said, I die today because I get in a car accident. Now we say get hit by a bus, right? But I don't know about you. Uh, Maybe it's just because of the line of work I do. I'm looking in the crosswalk every day because I hear that every day is we go outside, get hit by a bus. I am looking before I go to Andre's across the street for a lunch meeting. I'm looking for that car, for that bus to hit me. So I am not getting hit by a bus because I'm going to control that, right? But I can't control getting killed in a car accident, even if I'm the world's best driver. I can't control that reality. I can't control the tree branch falling on my head randomly. I can't control all these random events that occur to people every day that we read about. That's a freakish accident and that person died. That's so sad. I can't protect you that. So what's going to happen to Snyder Law? What's going to happen to your business if that's you? How is your family going to not only operate, but what if they're just going to sell that business? Of course, they're not going to operate. This isn't a family thing. They're going to sell the business, or whether they have to sell the business. Snyder Law. If you have a licensed business and they only have one owner that's licensed, then guess what? The state of California says you got to sell that business. So there's 2 years in which they have to unwind this practice, or any attorney in any law firm where there's only one business owner that's licensed to practice law in that state, then that firm can't exist beyond 2 years. It has to be wound down and sold. So what's it going to get sold for? Is there value there? What's your business going to get sold for realistically? Right? Have you primed your business for sale? If you haven't, guess what? I'm sure your business isn't really going to go for very much. Going to go for parts, and that happened to one of the first estates I ever had a chance to work on. That's what happened. The business owner was 55, had a thriving business, millions and millions in revenue. They did a lot of government contracts, and they built these metal pipes and all this stuff for flow of water and things like that. They had wonderful contracts. Big company, sole owner, no planning. he died of a heart attack suddenly at 55. His CFO in the business ended up buying the business for pennies on the dollar because it wasn't worth anything because he did all the business development, all the vendors and everything, all the contracts. No one wanted to re-sign with this business. It was a mess, so they had things not get fulfilled because they didn't have the internal structures, they didn't have the legal structures, so things took a lot longer. They lost a lot of business, and basically the CFO just bought the vehicle assets of the trust of the business. That's what it cost, but if they did a valuation, it could have been valued at more had he put the right things in place. So we don't want that for your business. So we have to integrate it into estate planning. And also, if you have if you have a lot of other assets, or your business is one of your biggest assets and it's very valuable, then we have to look at the tax implications of your business upon your death. How is the estate tax going to deal with that? We have to look at that. What is the income tax to your family afterwards? Those are things that we have to look at so that we don't have these negative events. All right, so key areas, just kind of to recap here, as we're getting to, we're at the middle of our talk today. So I'm keeping track, trying to get you out on time. The key areas that we need to review, we have to review compliance with all the laws, state and federal laws. I mean, we need to be compliant there. You need to know and not just assume, oh, I filed articles. It's more than that. All the way down to individual municipal uh, rules and regulations. I get a little notice from the city of Irvine every year that I have to declare what business assets that I have, and I have to declare I'm doing business in the city of Irvine. So you have to look at even those things and staying compliant with all the laws, from the big dogs, the feds, to the middle dogs, the state, to the little dogs, your county, or even littler dogs, your cities, your municipalities, local laws. Corporate governance. Are we running this thing as we're supposed to run it? Are we following all the best practices in running this business in our industry? Are we doing the things that we're supposed to do according to the law to stay active? Do we have the right entity? And that bleeds into asset protection. If you don't have the right entity, you're not getting that asset protection. If you're not doing the corporate governance, not getting the asset protection, because now you have the Swiss cheese wall. You don't have the iron wall, because you're not doing the right things to get the asset protection. And again, the asset protection is protection against lawsuits. We're very litigious. So on this note, we want to make sure that if the lawsuit is generated because of your business, easiest one, you rent out a house. You are a landlord. You put it in an LLC. And why do you put an LLC? Because you're worried that the tenant gets hurt or someone, invited guest, gets hurt on that property. However, there's some injury on that property, you're going to get sued. You're the landlord. But I want to put an LLC there so they can't sue me personally. They can only sue the LLC. And what asset does the LLC have? Yes, it has that property. But that's the most that a lawsuit can grab, would be the property. They can't come after savings. They can't come after other properties, investments. So you have isolated that risk because we put it in a box. Now let's look at the asset protection from you. You're driving your car on the 5 freeway. You look down because something dropped and you don't lift your head up, but in enough time before you see you rear end somebody that you didn't see that broke very hard. And then you cause a multiple car accident, and there's multiple people injured, including the one you just rear ended, because they got the worst injury because they got smushed and they have pretty serious paralysis. Guess who they're going to call? Jacob Emrani. Not pulling a plug for him, but I'm just saying he's on the sign. Who else is on that sign? Sweet James. Not so sweet. Not so sweet. Sweet on the sign because he's sweet because he gets people money, including himself. But they're gonna hire a personal injury attorney, plaintiff's attorney, PI. So you're going to get sued. And so if you get sued, can they come after your rental in the LLC? Can they come after assets in your very profitable business? You have a business bank account. Other your business owns its building that it's in. Can they? You are a doctor. You own medical equipment. All those things. Can they come after those assets? Well, I have set up a corporation. I have set up an LLC. Well, if you're in the wrong state, then the answer is yes, they can. In California, there's an allowance for charging orders, which means that you personally can get sued by Sweet James because of the car accident, and they can ask for millions of dollars in damages, and they can go after, if they're successful, in either a settlement or a jury verdict, they can go after your personal assets, including any business assets. Why? Because California law allows that. California law isn't as favorable to business owners. In case you haven't noticed, if you are running a business in California, it's not very favorable to business owners. And so, guess what? That's a rude awakening for a lot of my clients. We have to look at establishing your business out of another state. You're in the wrong state. Doesn't mean you have to do business in that state, just that the business has to be incorporated in that state. All right, so risk mitigation is huge. So we got to actually go down and see, what am I most likely to be sued for? If we're being honest with ourselves, a lot of stuff, like I mentioned. Employees, again, if you're operating a business in California, it's very employee friendly, not employer friendly. So watch out. A lot of compliance rules there. You're not doing your job, you can get sued for wage and hour, toxic environment, not posting the posters in the right spot, all that stuff, a lot of stuff. They didn't terminate an employee the right way. You can get sued, and quite easily. There's the premises liability issues we talked about with being a landlord. Other lawsuits, contracts, right? Contracts. We have data issues, right? So you have cybersecurity issues. You have a breach of data, particularly if you are in the health field, the legal field, and we have confidential information, and that gets leaked because there's been a data breach. Whose fault is that? And guess what? You probably don't have the right insurance. I'd be willing to bet good money that you do not have the right insurance in place to cover the cost of a data breach. You might think you do, you really don't. Why do I know that? Because I talk to business owners every day. We do business well checks. I see what I see. I know I'm a business owner. I know what the insurance coverages are out there. We need to do better than just say, I have insurance for that. So if that's you, if you're sitting there going, "Oh, Kevin, I got insurance for that. I got the rental insurance. I got my umbrella, or in my business, I have my premises liability insurance, and they said they threw in a little cybersecurity in there. I'm good." If that's you, if you're saying that to yourself right now, I am here to tell you, sadly, you're wrong. Why? Because I've seen hundreds of businesses over the years. Looking at my own business, knowing the law, I could tell you you're wrong if you're just going to rely on the insurance strategy. And if you still don't believe me after saying that, all you got to look at, sadly, is the fires from January up in the Palisades and up in Altadena. What are the insurance company doing? What is their game plan? Their game plan is to not pay out the money. So it's a fallacy. You pay for the insurance, and then they're going to fight you tooth and nail and paying out on a claim. And maybe they win on that. And now you don't have the insurance. The insurance needs to be the backup plan, not the front plan. The front plan needs to be doing better risk mitigation. And the last is looking at who is in how are we aligning our business with our plan? Who's going to benefit from this? We have designated beneficiaries. We're talking about not just the businesses, but the accounts in the business, who are signers on the account. Literally, if I'm in an accident in the hospital, I haven't died, but someone needs to access the business bank account to make sure bills are getting paid. How is that done? Who has the authority to do that? Is it just the business owner? Well, hey, you're the legal equivalent of SOL. Look it up. It's a real thing. So we also want to review as business owners as we go by. So we're gonna leave that to the side. We're gonna move on. We need to look at our financial and tax health and digital and operational security. Okay, I think we covered the digital and operational security pretty well from a standpoint of data breaches. Okay, but practically, as I just mentioned, how can somebody access a bank account? How do we normally access bank accounts right now? We go online. We sign in online. We're not going to the actual bank in person. Sometimes we have to. Sometimes we do. Maybe we're old school and we do that. But most people are just doing it on their phones, right? Or they're doing it on the computer, a device. We're doing it online. What happens when you try to sign in? Well, you got to put in a password. Well, who knows the password besides you? Oh, well, okay. I figured that out. I got some password aggregator and people have access and all that stuff. Well, they put in the password, and what if they get a little two-factor authentication prompt, which I don't know about you, but that's like basically happening every time. And I even have some software I say, don't do that because it's annoying and I don't need it for this one. And they still do it. And if you have somebody who's accessing it not within your IP address, they're definitely getting hit up for a two-factor authorization. How is that going to happen when again that authorization is coming on your phone or maybe an email to your email inbox and nobody knows how to sign into that or no one can access your phone? We have to think through these things. A lot of them are practical. And if they do that, if they sign into your account and they start moving money around and they're not stealing it, but they're just operating the business, are they committing a federal crime? I will tell you, if they don't have a document called a durable power of attorney that gives them the authority to do something on your behalf, like moving money around, because now they're acting like the business owner who is the only person authorized on that account, they are committing federal crimes with every transaction that they do is a separate federal offense. Oh, Kevin, that's hogwash. Well, I've never heard of the federal government going after anybody for a situation like that. That's just horrible. That would be so wrong. That would never happen. Guess what? It can happen, and it has happened, and it will happen. So we don't want to put our employees in that position. We don't want to put our loved ones or spouses in that position. Yes, our spouse is a different person, and yes, our spouse can be committing federal crimes by doing transactions within our business if they don't have authority. Easiest way for them to get authority? Durable power of attorney. Second easiest way, make sure they're a signer on the account. All right. Now those people have legal authority, and we've also dealt with the challenge of access because they can have legal authority but no access from a standpoint they don't know your password. They get stuck with a two-factor authentication problem. Well, then they have to go to the bank with the legal documents, and they ultimately get access. It's just who knows, that could be weeks down the road. So those are things that we have to align. And I can tell you, if a lot of people don't have those conversations in general in life, never mind business owner, think about your parents, your spouse, your kids. If something happened to them today, would you know how to access all these important areas of their life? If the answer to that is no, you know what your homework is. So that's an important piece as well. So we review that annually because every year we sign up for new stuff or we change our passwords, we shift softwares, all the things. All right, so now we're getting a block of new laws and important opportunities because there was a big new legal change as of July 4th. Trump signed into law the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, OBBA, or OBA. HR 1 was the House of Representative Bill 1. HR 1 is also what you hear it called out there. There's a lot of good and bad about it, and of course, there's when it comes to Medicaid, a lot of bad in there. So it's going to be harmful for people. When it comes to tax savings for business owners, a lot of good stuff, a lot of great good stuff in there. Not going to lie, good stuff. I think it was really big, whether it's beautiful or not. One thing is sure, it was a big bill because it pushed a lot of things together that probably could have been individual bills. But here for business owners, it's important to take advantage of those things because, of course, the law can shift. We have midterm elections coming up, and the pendulum can swing the other way, and that Congress can undo everything that was done here and all the tax advantages that you have. So take advantage of them while you got them. Um, and the only way you know that is by doing a business well check and doing a review to see what laws that are beneficial apply to you across the board. So here we're doing our business well check in general right now, but if we're sitting down with you, this is what I would say, this is what I have been saying when I'm doing these annual reviews with clients for our clients in our client care program to doing these business well checks for our business clients. They're doing their annual business checks. We are talking about new tax advantages. One of them here that you need to know about is that they've changed the rules in regards to depreciation for a new asset. You purchase a new slew of computers for the office, you can depreciate that equipment purchase, meaning that you can take the value of that equipment and count it as an expense and use 60% of its depreciation So you count it as expense. You get to depreciate that over time. And you initially in the first year, you can only say 60% of the value of that equipment could be depreciated. Well, now the One Big Beautiful Bill says you can depreciate 100%. So now these end of the year purchases that we see in order to lower your tax bill, so you go talk to your accountant, they're like, oh, geez, you got to do something. You got to go buy stuff for the office, whatever. We got to lower. You had a great year, so we got to lower your tax liability. Go buy stuff. Go buy a company car. Go buy a new furniture for the office. You might as well because you're going to get hit with a big tax bill. Let's do something to minimize that. That's what we're talking about here. Now you can take 100% depreciation of that equipment. So it really is a powerful tool. And if that pushes you into a negative income situation and you're reporting a loss, you can harvest that loss to the next year. So that could be important if you're looking kind of like hey, I'm going to be in a profitable phase in about year 2, 3 years from now because we're in a growth phase. We're taking on debt because we're growing. Then year three, we're going to be super profitable, but I can take that loss, carry it forward, and apply it to that profit in year three when we're super profitable. And that's a tax savings, right? That's not taking money out of your profit bank account later. That's tax savings. Talk to your CPA about it. I am not a CPA. I am not an accountant, but I work with a lot of business owners. I am a business owner, so I'm passing on that information. But absolutely clear it with your CPA and accountant. Um, so why do we integrate with estate planning matters? So we just talked about the financial and business piece. It's important to look at that annual. What can we do to put us in a better tax position or tax strategy? Should we buy that building? Should we not? Should we just have our money sitting into a 0.01% savings account, or can we can we invest our profits somewhere? Things like that. What can we do? How can we use retirement accounts, profit sharing, all that to minimize tax impacts but benefit people? All the things. So those are important. But now we have to integrate it with our estate planning. So our estate planning is important from a standpoint of if you get sick or you die, who's going to run your business? How is your business going to succeed? And I can't tell you that. Well, I did tell you. I started the conversation by telling you, so I can. This is one of the biggest things that gets overlooked in planning is listing your business as an asset. So what happens is, oh, I did my trust. And yeah, I put my property in the trust. Yeah, I put some bank accounts in the trust. But then that person dies, and we find out that they have a medical practice that they didn't put in their trust. Literally a client that I had, right? So we're doing the conference. Years ago, I learned the hard way, or at least the client's family learned the hard way, is that this stuff can happen. So there was a doctor and listing the assets. He just always disclosed he was a doctor. Didn't disclose that he owned a medical practice, even though we asked for that stuff. Didn't disclose that. Big kind of a big thing. And so all of his other assets got put into the trust for by and large. There was also a situation where they forgot a Bank of America account, and two actually, a personal one and one for the business, both that had several hundred thousands of dollars in it. And they forgot about the medical practice that actually owned land. All right. So found that out after he passed away and working with the son as being a trustee, and we're trying to administer the trust. And he's like, oh, yeah, there's that land out in San Bernardino. What do you mean with land? I have my list that we went over everything that wasn't disclosed. Oh, there's a medical practice, and I want to sell the medical practice. And he had active patients, and we have account receivables, and I got a guy who wants to buy it. Whoa, whoa, whoa! We can't do any of that because that's an asset that business wasn't in the trust. You can't just sell it. You don't have legal authority to do that. Oh, but I didn't tell you. I actually kind of did. I sold it yesterday. Uh, and well, you don't have authority to do that. So you got to go back and tell that person that you actually didn't sell the business to them. So there's those situations that happen. And that was a legit one. So we got to put our interest in the business in our revocable living trust on a basic level. So whether you have membership interest in an LLC or you have shares of a corporation, you're part of a partnership. Even if you're, hey, I don't have a business, Kevin. I'm a sole proprietor. You got to put your sole proprietorship in the trust. Want to know how to do that? Let's do some planning, right? We'll get that in there. But make no mistake, your business has to be aligned with your plan. And if you are in California and you have a business, then we're talking trust. We're not just talking will, we're talking will and trust. So we got to align it with your trust. And depending on the value of your assets and where you are, it might be not just a revocable living trust, it might be a different type of a trust. We got to talk about it because that's part of the planning. If you want to incorporate some asset protection because you're worried, well, what if I get divorced in the future? Or what if I get sued personally from Sweet James, the car accident? How else can I protect my assets? Well, we got to put it in a special irrevocable trust. Some of you on this webinar might and listening might have heard of SLATs, SLATS, SLATs. So that is a type of a irrevocable trust that provides great asset protection. Or there's a family LLC as well. So we have kind of this family kind of business that we can create as well that provides asset protection plus succession planning. How does it get down to the next generation the best way? And the an important topic here as we get towards the end of our time is just calling out again, because we called this out last year when it came out, the Connolly versus United States decision. This is Supreme Court, so the big boys and girls up on the Supreme Court. There are 9 of them. You might have heard about them in the news. They came out with a Connolly versus United States ruling, and it dealt with business succession. And this business succession didn't have necessarily to do with who the business was going to. There wasn't any issues with that. Now, these people, Connolly did it the right way from the standpoint that he was looking at, well, if I die, my family doesn't want to be in this business, so how can they buy out my interest in the business? Because I die, then yes, I have interest in the business that just stays there. So either my successors, my heirs, my spouse, my kids, they run the business. They're part of the business. They're owners in the business. But if they don't want to be owners, then they got to get bought out. And how is my company going to afford to buy them out? My shares are worth millions or a million or whatever. How's that going to work? Well, that's where we set up, or it was common to set up key man insurance. So the company takes out an insurance policy on the owners. So owner passes away, especially we have talking about a partnership. We're not talking about a sole owner. We're talking about a partnership. And so that way the company can buy out the partners, or there's a requirement they have to, right? So we're ensuring that we're not mixing family relatives of the partner with the business. We're just keeping the business to business, and we're dedicating the shares to go on to the remaining business owners. But the family, whether it's the spouse or the children, are getting a payday there because they're extracting the equity. Well, that's what happened in Connolly. And guess what? Supreme Court says, hey, look, the insurance policies you take out actually count towards the value of your estate. So, as an example, in Connolly, the business that Connolly was a part of purchased a multi-million dollar policy. Let's just call it a $3 million policy on Connolly's life. So Connolly dies. Now the business has 3 million. The business has 3 million, not Connolly's wife or kids. The business has 3 million to buy out Connolly's interest and then give it to Connolly's trust, which then went to the spouse and kids. All right, so the Supreme Court says, well, that 3 million that the business owns now counts as part of Connolly's estate value because Connolly had interests in the business, so that was still his business. So the business had an asset called insurance policy. So now we're going to have to factor that cost in. And you know what? The real salt in the wound is that $3 million policy ended up kicking Connolly's estate over into a taxable estate. And so the IRS got their pound of flesh, 40%. Because we're just trying to do the right thing by making sure that the business had liquidity to buy out Connolly's shares. So now we have to revisit that strategy for some people that are they're on that cusp of, hey, now my policy makes me, I'm not in the taxable range, but now it makes me in the taxable range. By the way, taxable range, it'll happen January 1st, so let's just call it what the January 1st numbers are going to be: $15 million for an individual, $30 million for a married couple. $15 million for an individual for separate property, $30 million for community property interest. So If you're single, then the number's lower. If you are married, the number's double. Just want to call it out, make sure it's easy to understand. So if you of all your other assets combined, you're looking at, are my kids going to get hammered by the IRS when you pass away? We got to factor in what the value of your portfolio is. That's where the value of the business comes in. You got to know the value of business. The value of the business is not the revenue you made last year. That is not the value of your business because they're discounting. All right. Especially if you're a partner, you only own part of the shares. You just don't open market for half the company, a quarter of the company, 10% of the company. There's no market for that. So we get a 30% discount kind of on average. I'm just using round numbers. Sometimes it's a little lower than that. But so your shares are already, let's say you're a partner, you have a 50% value of businesses valued at. So we had a professional come in and do a valuation. Assuming that professional says you have a business that's worth $10 million. Nice round number. Well, you own half of that business, so you have $5 million. But it's not worth $5 million because the discount, we're 30% of that, so it's really 350,000. See how that math works? Or 3.5 million dollars. See how that math works? It's because of the discounts. So that's important to understand how that all works. You know the value of the assets in your estate. You have to do this valuation professionally. This isn't your opinion. It's professionally because it's going to be done professionally after you die. Might as well do it now so you have the real numbers. So you, like Stockdale, you can confront the realities. So we got to talk through the business succession plans because a lot of business owners that have this plan, it's not going to might not work for them anymore. We got to look there. Good news. Good news. There's alternatives, right? We have a workaround. Okay, so how can we help as we're wrapping this up and we're hitting our hour mark? Well, here at Snyder Law, we have a team, so it's not just me. I'm the front guy for you today, and I do this personally, but as a team, we can offer you a chance to work with a firm that's going to work with others, right? We're going to be a complement to your professional team of advisors. You need your power team. You have your CPAs, your financial advisors, you have your insurance experts, and then you've got your business coach, your planner, you have your CFO, whether they're fractional or internal. We're working with your team of advisors, complementing on this area, right? Making sure that your business healthy from all of our perspectives and all of us working together on the same team for you. So we want to integrate all of these other areas that are important to your health of your business with your estate planning. And so that is managing risk so you can focus on growth. I like that. Manage risk so you can focus on growth. Thank you all for the opportunity to talk today about something that I am very passionate about. And if you're listening to this, I know you are of your business. So have a wonderful weekend. Get some rest, hopefully, from your business so you can be recharged on Monday and attack your industry and be masters of your universe.